Throughout the 90s, Kashmir was pretty much a masala topic for Bollywood. For instance, Roja, which besides introducing music maestro like A.R. Rahman to the country, made Indians aware about cryptology as a profession. And also the fact that you could have a physic like Arvind Swamy, but still get a beautiful wife like Madhu if you have a government job. That's why you see lots of people marching on the street nowadays to get the government job, you see. Then there was a movie called Pukar, where sinister plots of Pakistani terrorists called Abrush. Yes, that was the name. Even I, came to know that Abrush could be a name. And those plots got spoiled by none other than our own hero with her verdant hairs, Anil Kapoor. Another movie was Mission Kashmir, starring a bomb blast accused, real life blast accused as a righteous cop, and the person who made Moshi world famous playing a deadly terrorist. Then there are scores of action films, typically starring Sunny Deol, with charge up dialogues like "Tum doodh mangoge, hum kheer denge," "Tum Kashmir mangoge, hum cheer denge." It was a sad formula. Show evil Pakistani terrorists trying to create havoc in India. Generally, Kashmiris are shown as misguided people whose confusion regarding their identity and belonging is exploited by Pakistan to disintegrate India. However, all the sinister planning of Pakistani terrorists gets demolished by a brave heart Indian protagonist by eliminating pesky Pakistanis and their agents. Then something changed. During 2014, same year when new government sworn in with a brute majority, a movie named Heather was released and collected close to 100 CR and made good money for all the stakeholders of the movie. After watching the movie, when I came out of Inox Vadodara, I realized that Vishal Bharadwaj has flipped the age-old Bollywood formula. And yet, there were no Twitter hashtags trending with boycott Heather or no imposition of Section 144 in any part of the country. There were no bans or stay orders or any of the other silliness that has so stifled the free expression of idea of India. A fact that was doubly surprising given that our wise media walas had been professing a dystopian Hitlerian Bharat of suppress, oppress and depress ever since that man took over in 2014. The movie's plot was a retale of Hamlet, a classic play by William Shakespeare in Kashmiri background. Heather wanted you to trust that it was painting the real picture of Kashmir, anchoring the story to actual incidents and making the film realistic and gritty. Then, for good measure, harping on the "this is the true story of Kashmir" angle in the movie promotions too. It was definitely not a fiction in the way Roja, Pukar, Mission Kashmir were, and it would be naive to argue otherwise. It was a pointed political propaganda, but no one called it that. However, the recent Bollywood flick by Vivek Agnihotri, The Kashmir Files, is being termed as a propaganda film, and that's where it goes wrong for me. For instance, let's compare two scenes involving treatment of injured militant in both the films. Heather's father, a seemingly intellectual and upright doctor with a gloomy and kind face, is called by independence fighters. Yup, that's what they are portrayed in the movie. So, independent fighters calls Heather's father to take out the infected appendix of their leader. Now, being a dutiful doctor under Hippocrates' oath, not only he treats his patient, a criminal as per the laws of Indian state, but also hides him in his emergency vehicle and bring him home. What a noble doctor you see. Disregarding the ideology of his patient and treating him by risking his own life. Now, in real world, this might be defined as harboring a criminal and aiding and abetting crimes against the state, but not in the world of Heather. In Heather, this is a positively heroic, as doctor is helping the Azadi seekers. The Indian army comes. The doctor comes out holding his passport, where he is identified by a masked traitor sitting in the jeep. The Indian army goes into his house, where they are fired upon by the Azadi fighters with AK-47s. Taking heavy losses, the commanding officer decides to mortar down the house because he does not want to risk the lives of any more of his officers. In real life, this might seem to be a rational decision given that there are terrorists armed to the teeth firing back from the house, but not in the world of Heather. In the movie, that bombed down ramshackle house is symbolic of the cruelty of Indian state as we are shown how Heather, the son of the doctor, mopes about its ruins, remembering days gone by. Cut to the government hospital scene of the Kashmir Files. Group of militants storm into the general ward of a government hospital of Srinagar and ask for O negative blood for their injured group member. The head doctor tells the militant leader that recently there was no blood supply and O negative is a rare blood group to find. However, enraged militants ask doctor to get it from any patients going under the treatment. Visibly shocked, ward nurse asks the militant how is it possible. Without flinching, the terrorist shot her brains out. Fearing more irrational killings, a patient volunteers to give his blood. Government doctors sheepishly follows the militant's instruction and carry out blood transmission. As soon as the injured militant stabilized, doctor rushed to remove the blood nozzle from the volunteer. However, frantic militant blocks him, saying for each fired bullets of Indian army, militants will take 2 lives. The volunteer sustains heavy blood loss amid frenzied militants shouting of "Hum kya chade, Azadi, Azadi." Since the release of the Kashmir Files, many have come forward and have said that scenes shown in the movie have happened at some point of time in the valley. So why would someone call the Kashmir Files a propaganda movie and not Heather? Is it because Heather relied on an art of subtlety and the Kashmir Files relies on in your face kind of depiction of the events? Or is it because Heather shown the then state as oppressor and the Kashmir Files is showing the then state as a spectator? Or is it because Heather was directed by National Award winning maker director and the Kashmir Files by the guy who made erotic thriller named Hit Story? The tragedy of Kashmir has deep roots. Over the decades of endless cycles of violence, waves of separatism, the infiltration of Pakistan funded terror outfits, and the simmering discontent amongst the people, scholarly works and journalist exercises have dug deep in order to excavate and explore. Every historic event has course of narrative based on the vantage point. Even persons or group of persons who are part of that event will have different point of view of the same event. As is always the case with complex histories of places and people, we have had accounts depending upon which aspects of the issue they have been interested in. So, per Heather's account, Kashmir's violent history is all about struggle of identity. To show that, Heather alternates between story and blunt political sloganeering. The movie is Vishal Bhardwaj's official Azadi narrative. For him, Kashmiri fighters are innocent lambs who only fire when fired upon. He shows the Indian army tasked with extrajudicial killings of the Azadi fighters, Kashmir as a big open air prison for its denizens, and the Armed Forces Special Power Act as the worst instrument of India's aggression. However, his narrative keeps out Kashmiri Hindus' exodus. As far as the Kashmir Files is concerned, it was not an exodus, it was a genocide, in which thousands of Kashmiri Pandits were massacred, women were raped, and children were shot point blank. Even today, those families live like refugees in their own country. Heather's de-religionization of the most radical agitations of recent past is the intellectual subterfuge that allows so-called intellects to throw their lot in with religious-centric fundamentalists. They very well know inconvenient developments like Syrian independence struggle morphing into ISIS. They frame the battle in Kashmir as one waged by an expansionist state against innocent citizens and not one of the secular nation protecting itself from ISIsation. This is shown in a nuanced way by Vishal Bharadwaj. The Kashmir Files is not a film interested in nuance. It is a sledgehammer, especially in the way it stages its gory killings and lynching, which makes you shudder and sometimes look away from the screen. Again, many have shared stories of resemblance of the Kashmir Files scenes with real life atrocities, like lynching of Girja Tikku, killing of BK Ganju, Bitta Karate's interview showing self confession of killing Kashmiri Hindus, making the story less fictional and more of a documentary of the real life accounts of those times in the valley. Many are criticizing the Kashmir Files of not presenting the context properly. Why such killings happened? Who instigated rebels against the Kashmiri Hindus? But they were mum during the times of Heather and the other Kashmir centric movies too. So why such selective outrage now? The Kashmir Files too misses out on few points of view. For instance, how people are still being killed even after abrogation of Article 370. And what does that say about Wadi today, where Azadi slogans are still being shouted? We were told removal of Article 370 will pave ways for rehabilitation of Kashmiri refugees. So why haven't we still re-established all the Kashmiri Hindus who were uprooted during that turmoil? While asking such questions, people forget that no matter how powerful it may be, the Kashmir file is just a film. It is not bounded to give solutions of the prevailing problems. Movies are made with a single agenda to reach to wider audience. And the Kashmir Files has done that effectively. It has collected more than 250 crores on the box office and it is still marching strong. All those who are asking Vivek Agnihotri to contribute the movie's earnings to Kashmiri Pandit's rehabilitation didn't utter such words when Vidhu Vinod Chopra screened his movie Shikara. One another strong critic I hear a lot is why make movie tax free. It is based on state government's choice after all. If a certain state's government thinks that by letting go of entertainment tax income, which is primarily state GST, a movie may reach wider eyeballs and it may help the government in any which way, then the state government will make it tax free. Many are saying that why Bollywood does not make movies on atrocities on Dalits, or 1984 riots, or 2002 riots too. The question is valid in some sense. We have seen brilliant movies such as Jai Bhim, Karnan, Asuran from southern cinema dealing with the subject of atrocities on Dalits, and most of them were critically and commercially well received. However, Bollywood hasn't touched such subject, barring few attempts like Article 15, which was a commercial success and got a good critical response too. I think there is a latent demand for such cinema. People wants to consume the content which was never provided to them before. For instance, take the Kashmir file success. Everyone knew the plight of Kashmiri Hindus. Many instances of atrocities were covered by mainstream media itself, and people were discussing the Valley Exodus for a long time. So there was a curiosity around the topic, and people wanted to know the other side of the story. Vivek Agnihotri satiated that curiosity via the Kashmir files, and the rest is history. Movies are all about providing content, which fulfills audience cravings for that subject. That's why Heather made such huge sum of money even after showing Azadi fighters as oppressed and not the other way around. Again, in a democratic country, a film does not require balance. It can be as tunnel vision and as one-sided as it likes. It just needs to work as a film for its makers and viewers. In that sense, Heather works, and the Kashmir Files works even better. Most definitely. That's it from Momaya and Mehnat today. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like the video. You can leave your thoughts in the comment section too. Goodbye.